So good evening. Thank you all for joining. It seems like we got a lot of people here, so that's great. I just want to thank Bonnie and Stephanie and everybody at the CPAC for letting me do this. Just want to talk a little bit about ABA and what it should look like for parents. And I always enjoy speaking to parents. I learned a long time. I'm the parent of a child with autism. I learned a long time ago that there's a certain parent-to-parent connection that I think comes with conversation and meeting new people. And I've met doctors and BCBAs and attorneys and all kinds of people in my journey with my son, and all the good information seems to consistently always come from a parent. So I'm always up for having conversations with parents. So thank you for letting me do this. Like I said, I have a 14-year-old son with autism, and I've been a consumer of ABA services for him for about 7 or 8 years, as many as 7 days a week, oftentimes 2 sessions a day in the morning before school and after school. So I've had it at my home, I've had it in the centers, and I've had it out in the community. Back in 2017, along with my best friend and a fellow autism dad, I opened up an ABA agency called Family Perspectives, Inc. And our goal with that was to try to sort of bring a parental perspective to ABA. We had both gotten ABA services before, and we had sort of thought there were some opportunities, I guess, as being a parent. Sometimes we weren't, I guess, always heard. So that was our goal, and it's been great. COVID has definitely sent some things in disarray, but we will move forward. Before I get started, I do have a little disclaimer that I want to say before we get into the presentation. Tonight's discussion is not to be considered legal advice. It's not representative of an all-encompassing presentation as well. Each individual family situation is different and should be treated as such. So the advice shared here tonight should be used as a complement to your own family's unique situations with regard to ABA or starting ABA or not. So I do have a little agenda. First, I'm going to start off talking a little bit about the ARICA law, which ARICA, A-R-I-C-A, just stands for an act relative to insurance coverage for autism. From there, I'll try to sort out some of the confusion that automatically comes with all things health insurance. And it is complicated. It can get very complicated. I'm going to talk a little bit about what ABA is. I'm not going to get too deep into ABA, but I do want to talk a little bit about it. And then finally, or most importantly, what I think is we'll talk, what can you expect for ABA as a parent? And I think that's probably the most important thing. Please, if you have any questions, I'll take questions at the end. So I'll if you can just put them into the chat, we'll talk about it at the end. And I'm free for the rest of the night, so I'm available as long as anyone needs to. Just need to admit somebody.
Okay. And before you go on, I just want to remind everyone to please go on mute. Just mute yourself so that way no background noise interrupts Dave's presentation, and we're also recording so that we can present this to other people. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bonnie. So ARICA, again, it stands for an act relative to insurance coverage for autism. It just refers to the autism insurance reform law that was passed here in Massachusetts. I do want to give a shout out to parents. It was really a grassroots effort to get that law passed. That basically everybody that worked on that law was a parent or had some connection to a parent. It was passed quite quickly. Somebody else wants in. Hang on one second. Sorry. It was passed in 2010, and then it went into effect in 2011. What the law does is it requires private health insurance companies to cover what's deemed medically necessary treatments for autism, which can be ABA, but it can also be other things. It's not limited to ABA. It could be things like speech, OT, PT, etc. So it's not, a lot of people think it's the ABA law, but it's not necessarily just an ABA law. There's other medically necessary, anything that's deemed medically necessary can be covered. It does specifically have the terminology ABA written into the law. That was difficult from a I guess a legislative standpoint to get that put in there. There was a lot of lobbyists that didn't want those three letters to appear, but there was hard fighting for that. And it does have ABA in the law. So ABA is covered under the statute. When it was passed, not every state had autism insurance reform law. So now across the country, all 50 states and the District of Columbia has passed some version of autism insurance reform law. However, not all are created equal. So, you know, I can tell you in Massachusetts, we have one of the strongest versions of the law. There are no age limits, there are no visitation limits, and there's no dollar spending limit. So again, your health insurance plan has to cover, and they can't place limits. If you move just a few miles, I'm in Auburn, so about 15 miles south of me is Connecticut. They have age limits and dollar caps per year that can be spent, things like that. So that does not, so don't move out of Massachusetts. So the reality is that we have access to ABA through health insurance here in Massachusetts. And let's discuss a little bit about the types of insurances that are out there, because there are different types and there are a few exceptions. This slide is a slide that I took straight from a place called the Autism Insurance Resource Center. If you are a parent of a child with autism and you do not know what the Autism Insurance Resource Center is, Google Autism Insurance Resource Center and take a look at their resources. They can help you. Again, these are parent-driven organization. They can help you with any questions regarding your health insurance and coverage for all things related to autism. So this is a slide that I sort of stole from them, but essentially there's three types of insurance, or what I like to call buckets of insurance that people fall into, that a family will fall into. So there are private health insurance plans that are considered self-funded. Sometimes those are called ERISA, E-R-I-S-A plans. And those plans are regulated at the federal level, which just means the state laws don't necessarily apply. So those plans would not be subject to the ERICA law that I spoke of. Another type is the private fully funded. And again, when it says private, these are typically accessed through employment. So you work somewhere, they offer health insurance, you enroll, that's where you get your health insurance from. So a fully funded plan is, again, subject to state law. So if you have a fully funded plan, you have coverage. And then there's public plans, which here we call Mass Health. Mass Health is not subject to ERICA, but it does have its own ABA benefit built into it, except it does have a thing in that one limitation, and that's an age limitation, and it services individuals up to age 21. So I want to talk a lot more about Mass Health, because whether you have private health insurance or Mass Health or some combination of both, if you don't have Mass Health, you are eligible to have Mass Health. So a lot of people get confused by that. It's important to note that, you know, autism is a recognized disability. So if you're a child and you reside in the state of Massachusetts, you're automatically eligible. You qualify and eligible for Mass Health, and regardless of your household income. So a lot of people think that Mass Health is income-based, and there are some income-based issues with Mass Health, but it doesn't, you know, you could be, I guess, Bill Gates, and if you lived in Massachusetts and you had it, and your dad was Bill Gates, and you're a child and you're diagnosed with autism, you're eligible for Mass Health. So if your income's too high, you may be subject to a premium, right? So that means we're gonna have to pay for Mass Health, and who wants to pay more money for health insurance? So how are we gonna find out if you have to pay for it? There's basically two types of Mass Health. There are more than that, but mostly there's just two different versions of Mass Health. There's Mass Health Standard, which is the free version, and it's again based on your household income. And then there's Mass Health Common Health. This is the version that, again, based on your household income, would come with a premium. The coverages are essentially the same. The plans are essentially the same. So what's going to make the difference for you is going to be your household size and income. is going to determine whether or not you're eligible for Mass Health Standard or Mass Health Common Health. So again, remember, if you're a parent of a child with autism who resides in Massachusetts, you are eligible for Mass Health. Perhaps you work, perhaps you have Blue Cross Blue Shield through your work, and you think you're fine, and you are fine. You do have health insurance, but you have more access to more health insurance through Mass Health for your child. Odds are other people in your family aren't going to qualify unless they have a recognized disability in their children, but you can get more access. If you do end up on Common Health, there's a program that is kind of like the best kept secret, and that's called Premium Assistance. So I'm switching slides here. It's a really hard program to really find a lot of information about, but Premium Assistance sort of does exactly what it sounds like it does. It helps people pay for premiums. So it assists you in paying for premiums. And it assists you to pay for premiums for your primary health insurance. So that would be the health insurance that you're accessing through your work. So Premium Assistance only applies to people who have private health insurance, but you may be an individual that has private health insurance that falls into that self-funded category. And by the way, what makes it self-funded versus fully funded? Typically, self-funded plans are large employers, thousands of employees, maybe across the country, have a lot of revenue or money to spend, and they've found it beneficial to self-fund their health insurance claims for their employees. They literally pay the claims themselves. They always use a large insurance carrier to facilitate the claim. So you'll still have like a Blue Cross Blue Shield card, but Blue Cross Blue Shield is not paying for your services with your providers. Your employer is paying. So again, those plans are regulated at the federal level. The state laws don't necessarily apply. And the Autism Insurance Resource Center has been very successful helping families gain access to ABA services through their employer self-funded plan, not all, but many. And they actually have a lot of resources on their website that help people understand how to approach your employer. So if you work for, last time I checked, like TJ Maxx, so it's a large employer, they're based out of Massachusetts. They were a self-funded employer. They may not be anymore, I don't know. But if you worked for them, you didn't have coverage. You didn't have access to coverage under the Eureka law. But they help you with, they have some form letters. You really would speak to HR or something on that. And they can help people approach your employer, which people are sometimes scared to do. No one wants to make their employer upset. But many employers sort of fall in line with the Eureka mandate anyway. They realize it's the right thing to do. There is a state law. They operate business in this state, but they're not obligated to. So I kind of floated back, sorry. But coming back to Premium Assistance. So again, you're a person who has health insurance that you're accessing through your employer. You want to pick up Mass Health as a secondary form of insurance, and you've been assessed Common Health, and there's a premium. Whatever the dollar amount is, it varies based, again, on your household income and size. You're going to apply for Premium Assistance, and Premium Assistance is going to help you. If you're approved, if you qualify for Premium Assistance, and many people do, what happens is that the first amount of money that's given to you by Premium Assistance goes to eliminating your premiums with Common Health. So Mass Health goes from costing you money to being free. And then if there's anything left over, they just simply cut you a check every month. So I, once upon a time, fell in this situation. My previous employer, we had Blue Cross Blue Shield. I signed up for Mass Health as a secondary. I was assessed a premium of, I think it was $112 a month for him. I applied for Premium Assistance. That went away, and then I got a check every month for $456. So sort of, your private health insurance plan has to meet certain criteria, which most employers should be. It needs to meet the like the basic, I can't remember the standards of care under the ACA or something like that, but most insurance plans will. It's really going to be, usually the thing that kicks you out is the out-of-pocket maximum. Sometimes some plans go over the 4,000, I think, limit. But this can be very helpful to families of children with autism. So for me, it was extremely helpful. I added more health insurance coverage for my child. And it picked up, it wasn't just pertaining to ABA. When I took him to a regular visit, the copays were covered. He was on medication, that copay was covered. Had he have fallen down on the playground and had to take an ambulance ride, which is like a $750 copay, that would have been covered. So it wasn't just something that was helping me in the world of ABA. It helped me all the time. Every month, Mass Health was paying for something that my primary health insurance wouldn't pay for. So that was a benefit. So I had more health insurance. I had a check every month in my mailbox for $456 that I never had before. So, you know, for me, I kept thinking to myself, why wouldn't you want to do this? I can't imagine how someone wouldn't want to do this, but a lot of people get turned off by Mass Health. It can be cumbersome. They've made it much easier to apply these days. You just apply online. And the Autism Insurance Resource Center can help you with that as well. As long as as well as your local Autism Resource Center, which for most people probably on this call is going to be the Autism Resource Center of Central Massachusetts. So I think most parents are going to want to know, am I covered? I think that's really what people want to know. That's the first step in finding out whether or not you can have access to ABA. So the Autism Insurance Resource Center has a screening tool that they've created. This is the link to find it, but again, you can find it right on their website under resources. If you go to the link shown, you can navigate your own individual plan and situation, and it'll tell you whether or not you have access to coverage or not. But again, you know, just note, even if you don't have access to coverage, it may just be because you haven't accessed your coverage through Mass Health, which is another way of always getting access to ABA. So I want to talk now a little bit about what ABA is and what it should look like in home and from a parent's perspective. So ABA is applied behavior analysis. I'm not going to go into the storied history of ABA and talk about the founder, a man by the name of B.F. Skinner, and the origins of ABA. There is plenty of information that's available. It's been around a long time. There are thousands of research documents about ABA and that it, you know, proving the efficacy of it. I'm going to take more of a parental approach with the way I discuss it. But with that being said, I do want to say ABA is a science, and as such, you know, the people who practice, the clinicians who practice ABA are technically scientists. You would, if you've ever heard the term BCBA, that's what I'm talking about. The easiest way I describe it to someone who doesn't really know what it is it's the science of human behavior. And, you know, yes, it's used frequently to treat symptoms related to autism, but it's used every day, all the time. It's ingrained in everybody's life because everyone's human. And if you're engaging in human behavior, then ABA works on you as well. Basically, it uses the principles of positive reinforcement and consequences of behaviors to teach new skills to individuals. You know, the idea is to bring more meaningful outcomes to people, you know, in the world of ABA for autism anyway. That's what we're looking to do. So ABA is ingrained in all of our lives. You know, most of our daily living skills, our social interactions, our functional communication skills are all learned through childhood through positive reinforcement, right? So when we receive positive reinforcement for doing something inappropriately or having an appropriate interaction with somebody, we like that. That's the desired outcome. So we learn that way. And the more we do things in a socially acceptable way, the more positively we're reinforced. There's less consequence to behavior. So, you know, individuals with autism suffer in that sort of realm with social interactions and understanding things. So sometimes they do things that don't necessarily get positively reinforced, especially in a social construct. So in ABA, you know, we're going to take motivation basically and use it to teach you new skills or replacement skills for skills that you may have already learned or may have picked up along the way. So in ABA, there's something called the ABCs of ABA. So I do want to touch base on this as well. ABCs are just, it stands for antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So, the antecedent is simply what happens before the individual that we're looking at engaged in the behavior. The behavior is the behavior that they engaged in. And then the consequence is what happened to them after they engaged in that behavior. So by looking at those three things, a clinician or a BCBA should be able to determine the function of the behavior. And believe it or not, there's only 4 functions of behavior. Every behavior that we engage in as humans has one of 4 functions. There's attention-seeking behavior, so we do things to gain attention to ourselves. There's escape-motivated behavior. There's behaviors we engage in to get out of doing something. There's behaviors that we engage in to gain access to a tangible item. And then there's some self-sensory seeking behaviors, sometimes called automatic reinforcing behaviors. Those are difficult to change. We all have them. Sometimes that looks like a person that bounces their foot when they're sitting at a desk. It could be someone who twirls their hair. It could be somebody that bites their nails. It could be somebody that constantly talks with their hands. These are all sort of automatic things that our brains are getting some sort of reinforcement for, and they're difficult to work with. The other thing I want to mention about functions of behavior is sometimes a behavior can be multiply maintained. So sometimes we do things both to get out of something and to get attention. Sometimes we do things so they can be multiply maintained, or we may start doing something for attention and it changes over time because we're not getting attention. So now we're trying to do something different to get at something. ABA is used all around us. There is a huge push in corporate America for what's called OBM, or organizational business management, and companies are hiring BCBAs to literally influence consumer behavior, human behavior, changing behavior, and how you do things. One example that I know of is Hulu. If anybody has Hulu and has watched Hulu, they've, based on, again, data that they've taken on humans, some people like to watch TV with no ads, right? So Hulu gives you that option. So this is directly from a BCBA, that the option that you get at Hulu at the beginning of an episode to watch one long ad or choose to watch the ads as sort of as normal throughout the process. That comes from a BCBA, and that comes from data that suggests that people will bail or stop consuming Hulu if there's commercial interruptions in the program. They'd rather watch one commercial that's a little longer at the beginning with the understanding there's not going to be any more. I'm going to be able to watch the rest of this thing without any, and it increases the likelihood that they're going to choose that option. They still get the ad revenue, and you don't leave the platform to go to someone that maybe doesn't have ads, like Netflix or something like that. So ABA is all around us, and you're being ABA'd every day. I guess that's the way I would say it. So from a parent's perspective, the biggest thing to realize is that ABA works. I'm a parent, and I can tell you, when my son was about 5, that's the first time I ever met a BCBA. I had no idea what ABA was, and I had my little diagnostic report, and like the 3rd recommendation on the list was get ABA services, intensive ABA services, actually, for my son. So I sat down for an intake meeting, and this gentleman who was great, and he just kept saying, oh, your son's going to do this. He's going to make his bed. He's going to dress himself. He's going to make his own lunch. He's going to interact with you socially and talk and have volleys of conversation, and he's going to become potty trained. And I literally laughed at him and said, you have no idea who my son is. You clearly have no idea who he is. And I only had one goal, and my goal at that time was to get him potty trained. He wasn't potty trained, and it didn't look like he was going to become potty trained at all. And I just had this, overwhelming sense that, if he didn't get that, this, being a 60-year-old man one day, not in control of your bodily functions, is just, you just live a different dignity in life than someone who does. So that was really important to me. And you know what? He got potty trained, and he got potty trained pretty darn quick. So, and he's been potty trained ever since. And ABA works. So I was bought in from early on, and it's really helped. I mean, my son is pretty significantly impacted by autism, but I just had a call today with a child psychiatrist from the Lurie Center, and we had to go back to the whole history, and it was amazing how I kept saying, he doesn't do that anymore. Oh, it's so much better than it used to be. And it's really a lot of growth and development, and a lot of ABA, and a lot of understanding and learning. He's had to learn the longer, harder way for himself how to do things. But needless to say, ABA has changed my life, both personally and I guess professionally. And I think it's going to continue to change my life, whether I want it to or not, and whether it's got anything to do with my family or what I do for work. I think there's right now, as we speak here, there's some BCBA working on trying to get me to buy something or consume something or change my behavior in some way for some company out there. And they're going to be successful. So what should in-home ABA look like? So I think I want to make sure I get this one, described pretty well, because ABA sometimes gets a bad rap. There's some stuff out there about ABA that people don't understand, or they think it's, one thing or one dimensional, and it's not at all. So, an in-home ABA program, always is going to start with what I call rapport building with your behavior technician. You'll be assigned a behavior technician, BT, sometimes they're called. In my organization, we call them clinical associates, but you're going to be assigned a person, and they're not going to come in and start performing therapy right away, because no child wants that. What they're going to do is they're going to come and pair themselves as a positive reinforcer. So the introduction of them into your child's life is going to be a good thing, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to look very play-like. It's going to be like hanging out, and a lot of people are like, wait a minute, this doesn't look like therapy or whatever. But that's all part of the process. They need to establish a rapport with the individual, and that helps what's called in the field stimulus control. So, and the best way I can describe that, I'm not a clinician, which is a disclaimer. I'm a parent, but basically it's the introduction of the therapist into introducing that stimulus, the therapist, into your child's environment changes or alters their behavior. And typically at the beginning, that's all in a good way. But eventually the clinician will recognize that we're ready to begin formal programming that's individualized and part of a treatment plan that's been created based on conversation with you as a parent, direct observation of the child, and formal assessment of the child. The treatment plan is going to have goals, and we're going to start running programs on those goals. And what's really important is that it should look very natural or incidental. It should happen inside of what's already going on in your home, and what's going on in your so if you're going to dinner, you're going to dinner. If your kids are coming over and you're playing in the backyard, we're playing in the backyard. If your family's coming over for a visit, family's coming over for a visit with cousins or whatever it is. If we have to go to the dentist, we're going to the dentist. If it's time to go to Target, it's time to go to Target. And a lot of times, we target some of those environments as well, because parent report is, oh, it's so horrible every time we go to the store or we go to the dentist or when the cousins come over. So, if ABA is boxing you into a table or anything like that, that's not the way it should look. So it should be very play-based or incidental in nature, and it should happen in the child's natural environment, because at the end of the day, that's what the child's going to be in, and that's what the child's going to deal with, and when the therapist isn't there. Let's see. Essentially, ABA can be done anywhere, because ABA is human behavior. So human behavior happens anywhere, so ABA can happen anywhere. Over time, so after you've been running programs and sessions for a while, and everyone goes at a different pace, but you should see the results, the desired results, and new skill sets being acquired by your child. And that parent involvement is really key into how long this takes. All your insurance companies require what's called parent training goals. So there are literally goals inserted into the treatment plan that have nothing to do with your child, but they have to do with the parent. And clinicians work on these in various ways. And it doesn't happen like from day one, but there's a lot of different ways to write parent goals and to work on parent goals. But I'm here to tell you as a parent that the more you buy into your programming and the more that you buy into ABA and the more consistent that you can be with what's being asked of you or with what your child's displaying, the quicker and the better and the faster ABA is going to work. And you're going to run into what's called generalization. So many times I've heard parents say, well, he only does that or she only does that when the therapist is here. And that just means that it's working, and that where it's not working is the generalization of the skill hasn't generalized to either siblings or mom or dad or other caretakers who are not seeing the same sort of results or desired results. So, and typically that comes with inconsistencies that the therapist is there to work. And this is where, my parent perspective comes in all the time. I'm not a therapist, I'm a parent. So I'm the first one to tell you, there's no way that you can be as consistent as your therapist, but the more you're bought in and the more you try with these things, the better off you're going to be. So, parents have to parent, they have lots of responsibilities. My doorbell could ring and I can't just continue, waiting somebody out or whatever it might be to run an intervention with someone. So, ABA agencies understand that, but the more you can, the quicker things are going to work for you. So, and if you see things working with your therapist, then it absolutely can work for you as well. It's just a matter of getting that training and that understanding. And sometimes you have to do things differently because, again, a child has a learned history with mom or dad or brother or sister that they don't have with the therapist. So, but generalization is what is kind of what we're looking for. And when we see generalization, then we know it's working. And programs can actually go into what's called maintenance, where we really don't run them anymore because they kind of run themselves. And typically it's because the individuals learn, it's so much more reinforcing to say, may I have your phone, please? Because the odds are much higher that if I do it in an appropriate way, I'm going to get mom or dad's phone than if I throw a fit and hit and try to get the phone, because that never works anymore. So, when you see skills generalizing, you've got effective ABA, and really the job of all ABA providers is sort of to put themselves out of a job, so that the parents no longer requesting services, no longer can think of a problem area or how to handle issues as they come up. And that happens. It does happen. It's not easy. And, ABA is a slow process, and it's not always, lightning in a bottle or anything like that. But, parents need to understand what's going on, and they need to understand that, they have a huge role to play in what is going on, because they're the parent. And, we try to get parents to buy in all the time. And sometimes it's hard because again, I don't want to get into the science of ABA, but if you've always done something a certain way and you've got a desired result, all of a sudden, maybe I yell and scream and I get my PlayStation, and all of a sudden yelling and screaming doesn't get me my PlayStation because somebody told mom not to do that anymore or whatever it is. So maybe I'm not yelling loud enough. Maybe I'm not screaming long enough. Maybe I need to throw in some breaking of something, so things can tend to get worse before they get better. And that's usually when you take hard stances on things and you deny access. So you deny access to a preferred item that's never really been denied. That's where you're going to get a lot of problems with ABA, but also you get a lot of progress that way. But there's this little thing called an extinction burst that we would all go to. If you've ever been waiting for an elevator and you press the button and it's lit, which is the indication that it's coming. And you may see somebody become impatient and they keep tapping that button. That's a mini extinction burst of behavior. You're not getting what you want, and you know that doing this is supposed to get you what you want. So you just do it like more intensely, more frequently, a lot harder. That's an extinction burst. And children can have really, really interesting extinction bursts when things start changing from the way it used to be to some new way. But once that skill is learned, there's a lot, humans get a lot more reinforcement when they do things in a socially appropriate way than when they don't. So learning tends to go really quick once things start working just a different way. I think that's really all I have to present. I hope there's a ton of questions. I have my email address on here. Feel free to email me. You can email me any question. It doesn't have to do with ABA. It can just be a parenting question. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But if there's Bonnie or Stephanie, if there's any questions.
So thank you so much. I thought this was wonderful, David. I mean, my daughter is 16, so I've seen many ABA presentations, and I just think you did a fantastic job explaining it all, because it's
Thank you.
I think it's just so cumbersome and difficult to understand. So this was great. We did have a request if your slideshow was available after.
Yeah, I can. I'll shoot it to you, and you can disseminate it to whoever you like. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. There wasn't anything else in the chat that I saw. Did you see anything else, Stephanie?
No, that was the only one. I think, it takes a long time for parents to figure out all of the things that Dave explained today.
Yeah.
I know for me, like we are 6 years or so into this journey myself, and it's taken a long time to figure out a lot of the things that you talked about. So I hope that people look into that mass health as a secondary, and also premium assistance. It's a lot easier now to get that information, like you mentioned. So hopefully, between that and the benefits of ABA, hopefully that came across to everybody, because that's super important.
I agree. Like you said before, David, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about ABA. So I think this is great because it really is so beneficial when it's applied the right way and executed the right way. And again, dedication. It's not easy. It takes a long time to really master it all. And we do have a question that just come in.
Okay, great.
So Tracy would like to know about the Mass Health Standard. When your child turns 21, what will happen, and can you request to keep services?
Great question. So to my knowledge, keeping services going through Mass Health is not going to be possible after age 21. A lot of people can get access through private health insurance if they have it available, beyond age 21 up to, I think, age 26. My son's only 14, so I don't know much of that older stuff, but I know there's adults that are getting access in their 20s and stuff through private health insurance. But beyond 21 in the Mass Health world, that was so the access that came through Mass Health. So when the Eureka law was passed, Mass Health was just exempt. So all of the kids that were on Mass Health could not access ABA. And about 3 or 4 years later, there was a new law that was passed, and that was called the Autism Omnibus Bill, which was a pretty robust bill. But in it gave access to ABA up until age 21. I think that was a huge negotiating point in getting that law passed. So, as much as we didn't want to see any sort of age limits, in order to get kids, because there were so many kids, I had previously worked at an agency, and we had a wait list of 600-700. I think we stopped adding people after there was 600 or 700 kids on there that had Mass Health, and they just had no access, at that time in 2012, 2013, 2014. So, there was a huge push, and I think there is a push to help with that. The Autism Insurance Resource Center has information on their website. They archive all of their webinars. So you can go back to their website and look. And I do believe they have some that are more specific to adult services and
I thought they did
accessing.
also. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're real helpful. So I would highly suggest that also. And then also we had Eladia wanted to just suggest, the local DDS office as a resource. A lot of parents I know are connected, but some don't know about DDS. And they helped her with the mass health process with the premium assistance and helping refer her to a local BCBA. So that is another huge resource that many don't know about.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So if you're a parent of a child with autism, you should be connected with DDS. A lot of people don't want to do that or don't understand how that could be helpful. I'm connected with DDS. You'll be assigned a DDS Children's Services Coordinator, and that person's always available when you need them. And their job title sort of is reflective of what they do. They help coordinate services. So they have access to a few things that nobody else does. There's some programs in the state that you can only get on or get to through your DDS service coordinator, and many of them are crisis-based. So you don't want to wait until you're in the middle of a crisis situation to try to be applying for DDS eligibility or coverage. Do it now. So anyone, especially if you're new to the diagnosis, there's kind of two things you should be doing. You should be registering or applying for DDS, and you should also be applying for Mass Health if you don't already have it. It's sort of standard intake information, from my days working at the Autism Resource Center, which is a DDS funded family support center. We would always ask people if they were registered with DDS. And the Resource Center has a lot of programs that are only accessible to people that are registered to DDS because it's DDS funds that are paying for that program. So there's a lot of benefits to being registered with DDS.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. As these questions are coming up too, and I spoke to a parent before this meeting, I think between all of us and maybe Bonnie, one of our upcoming meetings, maybe we can just talk about resources. We could talk about the PCA program. We could talk about, all the things like, Dave had mentioned tonight, along with, Seven Hills Family Sports. I know Gina, maybe that's something Gina could kind of talk about too, but it seems like just having one massive meeting just about all of the resources that, and maybe we can put together a sheet with links and phone numbers and things like that. I know I try to gather things from different websites like the Autism Resource Center, but just having like one central location, I wonder if people would feel that, if they would find that to be beneficial.
Yeah, I know that the Autism Resource Center, they do an Autism 101 series. There's I think 6 parts to it. Yep. One of the parts is entitled Accessing Public Supports, and yep. It's not always just an autism specific thing, right? So any disability can access a lot of different public supports. So that is somewhere you can steer people. They do that typically at least twice a year, probably every quarter. I would think they do that, and I'm sure they're doing it remotely now.
Yeah, they are.
And that series is great too, really helpful. All of the, I think they go into law, like they have different ones.
Yeah, there's a special education component. There's a medication management component. There's a basic ABA component. There's the accessing public support. It's a 6-part series. I can't remember them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they also have, if you're connected with the Autism Resource Center, which I think most of us are, and that's how I met you, David.
Yep.
They do have people who can help you. You can just call them. If you don't know about the series, the Autism Resource Center, I always call them, they are my initial lifeline. And, for so many years, that Sue Loring and Sid, they were just instrumental in helping me get Sabrina services or access to workshops. My daughter's dually diagnosed, with not just Rett syndrome, she has autism. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the things that cause issues for her for learning are autism based. So they're just amazing. So
yeah, and my journey in advocacy, or whatever, parent support, or whatever you want to call this, it started with me being dragged, and I mean dragged, to ironically an ABA 101 course on Thursday nights at the Resource Center back in like 2009 or something like that.
Yep.
And I hated it. I was the only man there, and it was really bad presentation. I should say that, but the facilitator would give us these breaks, and that's where I first got a connection with another parent, and I started hearing things that sounded familiar. And I almost wanted to stop the presentation and just keep talking to the parents, and that led to me volunteering at the Resource Center and becoming a member of the Resource Center, and then I ended up working at the Resource Center. So, I mean, a lot of things have changed for me, but that parent-to-parent connection type of thing, I can't. If there's people out there that don't know anyone else that's a parent of a child with autism, and they're a parent of a child with autism, I highly, highly recommend getting some sort of peer, like-minded group of people that can help you. And like I said at the beginning, I mean, all the good information always comes from a parent.
Yeah.
Yep. And we talked with Dave before we started the meeting, and Dave, we would like to bring you back and do like talk about a little series. So everyone will see something in the future, probably after Christmas. We'll bring Dave back, and we'll have another topic maybe a few times, whatever we end up needing. I mean, this is the best thing for people to learn about information, and it's so much easier than like the way that you and I did it, Dave, like Thursday nights, Wednesday nights. I mean, they're all night. You're at your home. Like, we can do these remotely. You can tune in as you're available. We can record it. We couldn't record things back then, it wasn't really allowed, but so this is great. Just want to see if anybody else has any other questions, either chat it or take yourself off mute at this point. And before we end, we want to make sure we've answered everybody's questions.
And it doesn't have to be about ABA. It can be if your neighbor's bothering you. I've had those. So.
But I'll just start off while people are thinking about what they want to ask. So I was a big reader in the beginning, my journey, like I read a lot of books, like Out of Sync Child, everything I could get my hands on. I had books at the library waiting constantly. Is there something that you would recommend for parents, or a website to go to read more about ABA?
Yes.
I mean, I know it can be tricky.
I'm not a big reader. So I have a bunch of books on a shelf somewhere. There's so much material and resources that are available, but I mean, if there's a specific, I'm going to keep going back to that. Well, if I have a specific situation that comes up, and I have them all the time. My son is now 14. He's going through puberty. People have tried to warn me about puberty for years, and I just thought it was something people said, like, oh, like, wait until he's 3. Oh, wait until he goes through puberty. And they were like really trying to warn me about puberty. So I always go to a parent of a child that's older than mine, who's sort of either already dealt with it or knows or has dealt. And if they don't know, they know someone else. And like, that's where I get my best information. So if there's a parent out there that's struggling with, I think, a specific thing, or a specific issue, try to find another parent. But you're always going to be able to find a book about whatever it is.
The walk-in encyclopedia is usually the best way.
Yeah, that people learn through doing, I think, and when it comes to the future planning, which no one said so far tonight, and so what are my fears? My fears are what happens to me when I'm either no longer breathing or no longer cognizant of what's going on around me. So, and one of those two things is definitely going to happen, and my son's going to outlive that. So, that's what I deal with almost on a daily basis, like outside of the normal everyday, whatever he throws at me type of thing. But I'm constantly looking into the future, constantly trying to figure out, how am I going to pay and support someone for 20 or 30 or 40 years after I'm gone? I mean, like, how do I do that? And there is some great stuff going on out there in the world about that. There's another parent organization called Autism Housing Pathways, and literally they have all the pathways for housing and living and arrangements and future planning and Social Security. And there's so many things to know what's going on and what not to do, and employment. And arrangements and, am I going to get DDS funding? And if you're not even registered with DDS, you're not on their radar, So parents need to, you need to look into the future. It's coming, even though it seems like it's far away.
Tracy wanted to know if there were any resources for dads. So anything that you found helpful just as a dad.
Other dads? No. So no, there really wasn't. And, when I got hired at the Autism Resource Center, Sue Loring came to me and she's like, we got to get a dad's group going. And she's like, we've tried. And, but a couple of guys come and they're staring at me, and I'm like, so we got a dad's group together. And that's how I met my business partner, Brian, who's a great guy. And he came to all of my events. And we never did a support group. We never had people come to the center and sit at the table. We always tried to do some kind of sporting events. We went to Worcester Ice Cats hockey. We went to the Bravehearts games and stuff like that. We would watch football or something. And it's amazing what people will say when they're not sitting at a table thinking they're supposed to say things, and the amounts of information that were shared and just resources that were shared. I think dads get a bad rap sometimes, but dads know, they know their children, they know what's going on. They want to see changes as well. I thought it was really good. Now I left there. I don't know that they're still doing that. I offer to keep doing that. And, but it's hard. It's hard for dads. There's some online stuff. We do a dad's group it was just something we carried on, and we want to do a mom's group, but we don't have a mom to lead that group, and I don't think moms want to stare at me, but maybe they do. I don't know. But I highly suggest that, again, you need to have a peer, right? We all need to have like-minded people that we can talk to that, get it, or at least on some level get it. And, there's ways to find people like that, but you gotta kind of put yourself out there a little bit to do that. So my email was on there. Anybody can email me if they're looking to talk or something. So
I have a lot of questions for you, but perhaps we can save those for when you come back.
Sure.
But the last call, if anybody has any other questions for Dave. And then how can, I know your contact information will be in the packet, but just for those of people that might not end up looking at the packet or at your presentation, do you want to lay it out there for people just in case they want to give you a call?
So, sure.
I can type it as you tell us.
Okay. So the name of the organization is Family Perspectives, Inc. The website information is www.fpiaba.com, and our phone number is 866-922-2374. And yeah, you can leave anything you want on there.
Perfect.
That's great. And Dave, our SPED director, Kim Woodford, was on here a little bit.
Okay.
But she had to jump to another workshop. But
Sure.
she will be reaching out to you because she was interested in, getting some more information for her and her SPED coordinators. So
Sure. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So I'm very excited. This was great. I mean, I don't think you can ever attend enough ABA workshops.
Yeah.
I'm always learning something new, honestly. Every time I do basic rights, every time someone offers it. And
Yep.
again, you are great with all the information, and we look forward to having you back.
Yep. And
Well,
we
thank you
videotaped
for having
this.
me. Oh, good. Oh, good. So you were able to record it. Awesome.
Yep, we recorded it, so we'll post it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just
No,
wanted
that's
to
great.
let people know that if they wanted to show somebody else or forward it to someone else, a relative or whatever, this will be available on the Leominster SEPAC page.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
More than happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and information. And again, anybody who wants to talk to Dave, you have his information to learn more about Family Perspectives and maybe how you could get that service for your child, outside of school, which a lot of people I know a lot of people are looking for it. So I think this is great.
Yeah, we are located in Bolton. So I guess I should have said that, which is close by to Leominster. We have a lot of clients that are from Leominster. We have some staff that live in and around Leominster and Fitchburg. So you're right in your district's right in our hub, so to speak. So
Great. Awesome. Well, I think then we'll wrap it up then. I hope everyone has a great night, and we'll post once we're holding another workshop so that everyone can join in again.
thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Stay safe, people.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.